Like most nonprofits, your nonprofit needs money, and I'm here to help you get more of it. I wish that 40 years ago I had known these 15 steps to take before you write a grant proposal, because I would have had almost 100% success getting foundation funding every time. Now, in just a fraction of the time that I spent, you can benefit from what I've learned from many years of failures and successes. After you watch this 3-part series, you will increase your success rate by at least 100% and become an expert who gets results. In my many years of grant proposal writing, I have learned that when I follow these 15 steps, I saved time and received funding. And when I didn't follow them, I wasted time and the funding never came. This video is part 1 in the series where I'm going to share with you the first 5 of the 15 crucial steps you must take before you write a grant proposal. If you follow these steps, I guarantee they will substantially increase your funding success without wasting your time as well as the funder's time. And best of all, this video is free. You should be watching this video if you're new to grant writing and you need to know where to start. Maybe you've written grants, but you haven't been as successful as you want, or you're an executive director, a staff member, a board member, a volunteer who has the responsibility of writing grant proposals. Or perhaps you're someone who wants to make grant proposal writing your career. Well, if any of these describe you, you've come to the right YouTube channel. Hi, I'm Dr. Marc Hardy with Nonprofit Docs, where we offer professional help for your nonprofit problems, giving you the tools to create a better world. Now, you may ask yourself, why should I listen to this older gray-haired guy? Great question. And I have a few great answers. My 40 years of teaching about and speaking and consulting for and practicing in the nonprofit sector have given me a depth of experience and, most importantly, wisdom, which only comes with the lessons of many failures and successes. I'm the retired director of nonprofit certificate education at the University of Notre Dame. I've given numerous seminars on grant proposal writing, leadership, strategic planning, just to name a few. As a speaker, consultant, and trainer, I've spoken to over 400 groups and thousands of people across the United States and in half a dozen foreign countries. I hold both a Masters and a Ph.D. in the study of philanthropy from the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy at Indiana University. I've been the executive director of a private foundation, the president of 2 nonprofit state associations, and served on the board of several nonprofits. I've taught grant proposal writing to university faculty staff, and I've also designed classroom and online nonprofit courses. In addition, I've interviewed several foundation leaders about how they evaluate grant proposals, as well as serving as a grant proposal evaluator for 2 foundations. I've taught nonprofit leadership and management at the University of Notre Dame, Indiana University, and Butler University. And now I want to share my knowledge, experience, and wisdom with you for free, because I believe that nonprofits offer hope for our struggling world. And because I'm retired, I can tell you what really to expect. No glossing over things here. My years as a university teacher have taught me that it's important that you do each of these steps in order, because one builds on the other. And the final step, step 15, which will be covered in part 3, is the most important step that is rarely used or even known about. It is so important that at the end, I will share with you how step number 15 helped land a $1.4 million grant proposal that I helped write when I was at Butler University. But you must master steps 1 through 14 first, so that last step will work its magic. So in part 1, we're going to talk about the first 5 steps you must take in order to increase your grant proposal success. I'll outline these steps briefly and then go into more detail on each one later in the video. So number 1, understand, if you do not have a compelling problem or challenge, you don't have a grant proposal. And we'll discuss the importance of creating a strong needs statement to catch the interest of the funder. Number 2, we're going to learn how to quickly do research on your problem or issue, which is very important. You have to know what you're talking about. Number 3, it's important to realize that not all foundations want to fund your proposal or your nonprofit, I'm going to share with you how to set your funding parameters in order to target possible foundations. Number 4, next I'm going to show you how to find foundations that will fund your grant proposal with 3 quick and easy research tools. Number 5, once potential funders have been identified, I will help you discover effective and easy ways to do research on your potential funders. I guarantee that when you finish this series, you will save time and significantly increase your chances of getting your grant proposal funded. If you want a written guide of these first 5 steps for free, simply use the link below to download it from my website. And finally, I welcome your comments below about this video or any other nonprofit problems or issues you would like me to address. I promise I will respond to each of your questions or comments. And before we begin, let me share with you one tip that will let your professionalism shine through. Always refer to yourself as a grant proposal writer, not a grant writer or someone who writes grants. You do not write grants. Only a funder can do that. You write proposals for grants. So always refer to yourself as a grant proposal writer. It will tell the funder and others in the nonprofit sector that you are a professional. So let's get started and get you more money. Step 1 is the development of your needs statement. Why am I starting with this? Because it drives everything else in your proposal, and it must catch the interest of a funder. If the needs statement is not compelling, your chances of getting funded are 0. Remember, you are competing with hundreds, if not thousands, of other proposals for the same limited amount of money. Every aspect of your proposal must stand out, starting with this one. So let's start with a not so compelling needs statement so we can compare. I will tell you that I used AI software to generate the first draft of the needs statement and the second draft. And I have to say, as an older grant proposal writer who is very skeptical of new software gimmicks, I have to admit that this is a tool that saves you time and often delivers results that are better than what you might come up with on your own. But remember, you must edit the results to fit your proposal, and you must check any research or sources that your AI system cites to make sure it's legitimate. Another tip here is that to get the best results from your grant proposal, it's important to do this as a team. In fact, feel free to share these videos with your team so that you are all on the same page. Most nonprofit professionals have no idea how much time and effort is required in writing a grant proposal. It's a team effort, and everyone in your nonprofit should understand why you are applying for funds and what it will mean to them in terms of execution. So this is draft 1 of the needs statement, and it's called Addressing Food Deserts in the U.S. And what I basically did is I went to ChatGPT and I vocally spoke to it, and I said, I need a needs statement for a grant proposal that talks about food deserts in the United States, but I want it to be not a well-written one. I wanted it to be a poorly written one on purpose, because I want to show you the contrast between a poorly written needs statement and a well-written needs statement. So here we go. So this was the first draft. After I put it in, this was what ChatGPT came up with. And it says, of course, draft 1, needs statement addressing food deserts in the U.S. Food deserts are kind of a big problem in places in America. A lot of people don't have good access to grocery stores, and they end up having to buy food from convenience stores and fast food places instead. This makes it hard for people to eat healthy, which is bad for their health. People in these areas don't usually have a lot of money, so they can't always get good food. Studies say that food deserts are in cities and also rural places, which means a lot of people deal with this. If people can't get good food, they might get sick or have other problems like obesity or diabetes. It's just not fair that some people can't get food easily, while others can just go to the store whenever they have to go so far to get it. With more money, we can do things that will help, like maybe opening more stores or making gardens or something. In conclusion, food deserts are a major issue that affects a lot of communities, and people need better access to food. If we can get funding, we will be able to help fix this and make food easier to get. This is really important and will help people be healthier. So obviously, this is not a great needs statement. It's more like a conversation that somebody might be having with someone else, trying to explain it at a very elementary level. It's not real convincing. It shows that their heart is in the right place, but there's not a lot of particulars like evidence that this is happening, what causes this problem, so on and so forth. So what I did is I took this statement and I put it back in AI, and above it I typed, please take this statement and make it better, make it a very good needs statement, and include a personal story of someone who has suffered a food desert, and also recent research about food deserts in the United States. So this is draft number 2 of the needs statement. This is an improved needs statement about addressing food deserts in the U.S. Now, I took that original statement, the draft 1, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I said, basically, take this statement and improve it with a personal story with statistics, not only research nationally, but research in St. Joseph County, Indiana. And here's what it came up with. So let's start with this. It says, draft 2, improved needs statement, and this is addressing food deserts in the U.S. So we're going to start with a story to touch the heart. And here's the story that AI came up with. Young Miles presses his face against the cool glass of the apartment window. His stomach is growling. His mom, Simone, promised she'd bring home something good tonight, but he knew better than to get his hopes up. Dinner was always a mystery, sometimes a bag of chips and a can of beans, other times a microwave frozen dinner she had managed to grab from the corner store. Miles didn't remember the last time he had seen fresh fruit in their home. And vegetables were an even bigger rarity. Their neighborhood is what people called a food desert. Miles had learned that term in school, and when he told his mom about it, she sighed and nodded. That's exactly what it is, she had said. A desert, dry of anything good for us. There wasn't a grocery store within miles of their apartment. The closest place to buy food is a gas station, and the prices there make his mother frown every time she has to pay. She works 2 jobs, one cleaning office buildings at night and the other folding clothes at a laundromat during the day. But even with all that work, healthy food is a luxury they can't afford. Now we go on to cite national statistics about this problem. And this is where it gets interesting because we want to make sure that everybody knows what a huge problem this is. The second part starts, this is food insecurity, which is a critical issue in the United States, particularly in areas classified as food deserts, neighborhoods and communities where residents have limited access to affordable, nutritious food. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, defines food deserts as a location where grocery stores or supermarkets are scarce, often forcing residents to rely on convenience stores or fast food options that provide limited healthy food choices. This lack of access disproportionately affects low-income communities and communities of color, exacerbating health disparities and economic challenges. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, highlights that individuals living in food deserts are more likely to experience malnutrition and suffer from long-term health complications due to a diet reliant on processed high-calorie foods. While supplemental initiatives like the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, HFFI, and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, aim to mitigate food insecurity, these programs alone have not been sufficient to address the systemic nature of food deserts. Many grocery retailers are reluctant to open locations in underserved areas due to perceived financial risks, and existing programs often fail to address the root causes of food inaccessibility, such as inadequate public transportation and economic stability. Now, that's the end of the national statistics. Now it goes into the local statistics. So, as of 2021, approximately 29,810 individuals in St. Joseph County, Indiana, experienced food insecurity, representing 11% of the county's population. This figure aligns with the county's poverty rate of 13.2% reported by the U.S. Census Bureau. Notably, food insecurity disproportionately affects children. In 2020, St. Joseph County had a child food insecurity rate of 19.3%, equating to 12,350 children. The Food Bank of Northern Indiana, serving St. Joseph County, among others, reported that 12.4% of Northern Indiana residents were food insecure in 2021, with children comprising 17.5% of this group. These statistics highlight the ongoing challenge of ensuring consistent access to nutritious food for all residents of St. Joseph County, particularly its younger population. This is the tremendous need that we at whatever your nonprofit is constantly work to address. The end. So you can edit this to be shorter. If you have more room for words, depending on the proposal, you can expand it, find new statistics. You can go in and edit this the way you want it so that it sounds more like your voice. But the fact is that using AI gives you a good outline. It gives you good ideas. But do not cut and paste whatever AI gives you, and always check out the information that they give you and the sources that it comes from. And right here, they're highlighted in blue, so you can just link to them and make sure, or go directly to the site. Some of these you can see are from stacker.com, and some are from, Feed Indiana. Just make sure those statistics are right and that they're legitimate. So, having looked at a poor needs statement and a much better needs statement, hopefully it gives you an idea of how you can put together a compelling, interesting, attention-getting needs statement. The important thing is to lay out the problem on both a national and local scale, and to emphasize the importance of the nonprofit's work. Notice how the second needs statement is supported by statistics and research, both nationally and locally. And be aware that most nonprofit foundations are required by federal law and the IRS to spend at least 5% of their assets each year. So it's not a question of will they give you money or not. The question is your need or problem more compelling than the numerous other proposals they receive? The quality of your needs statement is a very important aspect of your grant proposal, and it also helps your organization focus on its mission and vision. Now, if you have other questions about the needs statement, or if you would like me to record a deeper dive into the writing of a needs statement, maybe with more examples of using AI, please leave a comment below. My goal is to give you the tools you need to solve your nonprofit's problems so that you can help save the world. Step 2. There are several easy ways you can do research on your problem or issue, and I'm going to share with you the quick and efficient ways to find the information you need that does not waste your time. These are the techniques that many of us in academia use to do solid, credible research, and it works. It is best to use the most recent research you can find, but most importantly, it should be convincing and factual. So first, the newest way is to use AI with apps like GPT Chat to identify research that is out on the internet, but it's very important to always confirm the information and, most importantly, the source of the information. Do not make the mistake of believing everything that artificial intelligence suggests to you is true. Funders will pick up on any fraudulent claims and your credibility will be damaged. Here's an example of how ChatGPT can work to help you do research. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this in. Please list all research in the last year on the subject of food deserts in the United States. Now notice I said all research in the last year because you want the most recent research there is, and you don't need all the research. You just need the most recent and the most pertinent to your needs statement. So we're going to hit the up arrow here, and it's going to calculate for us what that is. Isn't this great? Look at all of this. These are all within the last year. They also have references here to other things, articles in San Francisco Chronicle, in routers. It goes on. This gives you all kinds of resources to go to and to use in your grant proposal. You can print this off, you can save it, whatever you want to do. This Chat GPT or any other AI that does research like this can help you tremendously. So if you're a more mature person like me, don't be afraid of AI. It's another tool. It's sort of like, I do a lot of projects around the house because, of course, I'm retired now. And the reason I do it is not that I'm particularly good at it, but because every time I do it, I learn something. And I have to tell you, there are some things that frighten me because they're new. I've never done them. But I have to tell you, one of the places I go is YouTube. YouTube is a tool that I use all the time. Chat GPT is a tool, just like anything else. And when you are fixing something, for instance, around the house, you can either use a handsaw or you can use an electric saw. I mean, what works better, right? We're not afraid of circular saws anymore. We use drills instead of hand drills now. Why? Because it's easier, it's safer, and it's faster. So that's what I look at as Chat GPT and all the other social media stuff that's out there, all the advancements. These are simply tools for us human beings to use. So that's how you do research on Chat GPT, and you can do it over and over again, use different wording, so on and so forth. You might want to use food banks and poverty. I mean, there are a number of ways to go. Now, I have a subscription. I think it's the basic subscription. I think it's like $20 a month, but you can also use it for free. Okay, well, let's go on. Second, I think Google Scholar is a free way to do research. It will search professional and academic journals on any subject you enter, and sometimes access to the research is free. Usually, at the very least, you'll be able to read the summary or abstract to determine if the research is right for you and for your proposal. Now let's look at Google Scholar, which is a very cool instrument and a way to look for academic journals especially, but all kinds of writings. And you preferably want something within the last year or two or 4 or 5. You don't want it past 5 years. So we're going to use Food Deserts in America. We're going to put that in Google Scholar and look at all of this that comes up. Isn't this interesting? Now, I'm going to put this since 2021. So that's within the last, 3-4 years. And then you can go down and look for the academic links. A lot of these already have PDFs, as you can see as I'm pointing. And it could be that you can just download the PDF on that. So what you're going to look at here, when you go to Google Scholar, there are a couple things it does for you. Number one, it usually gives you an abstract, which means it tells you really what the study is about. So you can read this abstract right here, and it will tell you if this is something that you want to cite in your proposal. And if it's not, well, then you just go back and you don't use it. Now, sometimes it will have a place to download this. And if it doesn't, sometimes it'll have a PDF. This one does not look like, well, it says read the article. So you can go here, and it looks like you can read the whole article. Let's go down to Science Direct here, the dollar stores and food deserts. And this was done in 2021. This one was done in 2023, 2022. So these are all within the last 4 years or so. And here again are the highlights. Here's the abstract that you can look through. It's really important just to look at the abstract first before you read the whole article, because if the abstract has nothing to do or has little to do with what you're doing, then fine. You can read the introduction if you want to. What I like to do is to jump down and see if there's a conclusion. Oh, here's a conclusion right here. So here's a conclusion, and you might want to read that to see if, okay, what has this research found out, and is that valuable to me? Now on this, it says view open manuscript. Let's go to that and see what happens. Well, yeah, here's the whole manuscript. You can read the whole article here. It looks like you can probably download it. Let me see. Yeah, you can download it. It also has a place there where you can purchase the PDF, which, let me look at that. See, it says purchase PDF, but I don't know that you really need to do that if you can see the whole text. Now, here's the thing. Even if it does not have a PDF, you at least know what the article's about. And if they want you to purchase it, don't do that. Go to your university library or maybe even your local library and try to find the publication that put it in there. In this case, this is Applied Geography. It has the volume, the date, the whole 9 yards. Just plug that in. And most of these journals are online, and you can just go there and get it for free and download it if it's important to you. Okay? So that is how you use Google Scholar, and it saves you a ton of time. It shows you exactly where this stuff is. You can read it quickly. You can limit it. You could go, for instance, since 2025. So here are all the things that have been done, written on it since 2025, and that's the most recent. And it's best if it's a peer-reviewed article, only because that means that it has been put before a council of their peers, usually 2 or 3 people, who have said, yes, this is credible, you can go ahead and publish it. And so it goes through a layer of credibility that other articles may not have. But if it's from a peer-reviewed journal, then it's pretty solid. So that's how you use Google Scholar to do research on your needs area. Once you have identified a journal or source through ChatGPT or Google Scholar, you can often find the entire research article on the online databases in either your local library or, even better, in a university or college library. By doing a search there, you can find additional articles. And here's an example on how to do that. So once you have identified some journals that maybe you don't have access to their full PDFs or whatever, or you want to find any more journals that deal with this, you can go to your local library or, if possible, to your university library that is near you. Ask them what it takes to get a card. Sometimes you have to live in the city or the county or maybe just in the state, but usually you can get a card even if you don't work there or you're not a student. And right now I'm using the University of Notre Dame website to do this search, only because I'm retired from there and I have access. I'm a retired teacher and director of the nonprofit certificate education program, but Nonprofit Docs is not affiliated with the University of Notre Dame. We're not here to promote Notre Dame or use it as a credibility factor or whatever, just to make that clear. But you can access other university websites who will have access to academic journals. Now, in this case, I really like using EBSCO, or sometimes they call it Eric right here, see this, /EBSCO, which is up here. And that is a database that has, or database, however you want to say it, that has all kinds of journals that are online, electronic, and you can have access to them for free. So what I've done is I have plugged in food deserts in the search topic, and I could do all kinds of stuff here, but I'm going to go down. Sometimes I'll have a thing for peer reviewed. I want to see those first. And it says it's limiting my results it says limit your results 1. Okay. We'll see if there's only 1 there. And I just want to see what's out there for food deserts. So let's see what we come up with. Let's push this. And actually, there are multiple ones. Now, this was published in 2024, and this one was published in 2017. It's a little far back, but you could probably still use it 2015. So we're going further and further back. So if you want it within the last, let's say, year or two, then this would be the one you want to use right here. When you go here, you can go to the journal and you can find out what it's all about. You can find out, here's the abstract, here's the entry date, all that good stuff. Here's the access options. So you can get the full text right here. You can use this in your needs statement, but also in your entire proposal. Okay. So that is really how you do the research. That will give you a good idea, but I would highly recommend Eric and using the EBSCO database if they have that. If not, check with your librarian and ask them, hey, if I was researching this, what academic journals would be best to look in, or what academic journal database would be good to look at. So there you go. Let's move on. Next, search Google Books. It's a quick and easy way to see what's out there in your needs area, and many of the books and reports are digital and, best of all, free. So here's how to do a Google Books search. Next, we're going to look at Google, but this time specifically Google Books. So you want to go into Google, put in Google Books, and of course this will pop up, and you simply go there. And Google Books is a amalgamation of all kinds of digital books. Some of them are very old, some of them are new. You just never know what you're going to find in there, but it's always an interesting place to look and always one more research place. So we're going to put food desert. How's that? In the search term, and let's see what we come up with. So quite a few of these are popping up. A lot of these, you can read them online. They'll have a preview to them, as you see here. Now, this was in 2016, this particular one, but I want to look at that one for a particular reason. You can also change this here and put a custom range in. But for this demonstration, I'm going to show you something here. You don't have to read the whole darn book. I'm here to save you time and to make sure you don't waste any time to get this done quickly and efficiently. So let's say we go to this one, this book right here. It pops up. It's really kind of a small report. It's only got 13 pages, but what it does have is it has a table of contents. So the first thing you want to do is look at the table of contents and say, is there anything in this table of contents that I can use that will help me in my proposal? It could be that maybe only one or two chapters relate to what you're doing. For instance, maybe right here, food access and insecurity in a supermarket city. If you're looking at food deserts in a particular area, in our case, let's say St. Joseph County, Indiana, then that particular chapter may be of use to you. Now, keep in mind that this isn't one author. These are several authors who are experts in their particular field. And this is not uncommon in academia. They get a bunch of experts to come together and write different chapters because they're experts in those areas that fulfill a whole book. So you have to go through and say, okay, do any of these things, here's urban food insecurity and social protection. Do any of these things mean anything to me? Do they relate to what I'm doing? And if so, great. Now, I don't know if you can use the whole thing here. Let's see how far this goes. There's charts, there's graphs. Yeah, see it down here at the bottom. It says pages 23 to 189 are not shown in this preview. So this is just a preview. But it gives you an idea if the book would be useful. And then you can go to the library. And if the library doesn't have it, you can use a service called WorldCat, which will go out and find that book in libraries across the United States. They will send it to your library. The library calls you, and then you can go pick it up for free. Now, here's the deal with that. Usually it's only for a 2-week period or a 4-week period, and you have to give it back. But the fact is, you can use it for free. You know that it's something that you could really use and need. And it's simply from doing this Google search on Google Books that you found it. So look at the table of contents, make sure that's, what you want. Okay. So here's this one. It's another book. It was written in 2020. So, within the last 5 years. Here's what I like about this. Here is the table of contents, and you can decide again if any of these titles kind of hit you. Now here's one, the problem with feeding cities. So that could be a chapter that might be useful to you, but you might want to get the whole book. And here's the interesting thing. In this particular book, you can go down all the way. Oh, there we go. So here's the index. You want to look at the index. Why do you want to do that? Because you want to look to see if there are any terms in the index that match. So let's say we're looking for food deserts, and we go to the F section. Here's food access. Here's food banks, food deserts. Look at all of these. Now, what this does is it tells you exactly what pages in this book those are mentioned on. I use this a lot when I did research, especially when I did my dissertation on community foundations. And I would look to see if there were any search terms that said community foundations, not foundations, not community, but the two words community foundation. If there was, then I would go to those pages and see what was there. Here's food distribution infrastructure, so on and so forth. I would definitely look that over and see if there are any other terms that might be helpful. This will save you an amazing amount of time when you do research. You don't have to read the whole book. You just have to read the parts that are of interest to you and that have something to do with your project, with your proposal. This will save you a tremendous amount of time and effort, and it will give you great resources for your grant proposal. Finally, government websites that are related to your need statement are always a good place to look. For instance, you can use the U.S. Census to identify race, wealth, poverty, etc. of groups of people in a certain geographic area. Very, very useful information, and this is the way you do it. So, you go to the United States Census Bureau website, which is what I have up here. And I'm going to put in St. Joseph County. See, it pops up St. Joseph County, Indiana, because that's where our supposed grant proposal is going to be focused on. And you'll see all of this pops up, and this one is directly related to St. Joseph County, Indiana. So we're going to go here, and you'll see it has all these statistics, population estimates, so on and so forth. You can look at economics. So here's the economy right here, and you can look at income and poverty. So they have statistics on the median household income of St. Joe County, per capita income in the last 12 months, which is in 2023 dollars, but this covers from 2019 to 2023. And most importantly, persons in poverty, the percentage. So right here is the percentage of persons in poverty. It'll give you information about employers, who owns businesses, how many people, so on and so forth. And then it'll give you like the population per square mile, which is really interesting because if you're dealing with a very specific area, you might want to hone in and say, well, this is the population in our particular area. This is how many people live here in a square mile. Because if you're in a city, that number could be very high. It gives you the whole population estimate, 273,744 right here. And then it breaks all that down. So again, a wealth of information that you can use for your proposal. And you can do national statistics, you can do local statistics, so on and so forth. So don't discount these websites just because they're government websites. That's why they're there, because a lot of people use them. In fact, I have a friend of mine named Mark Germano who uses this in his fundraising. He targets areas where there is a great amount of wealth, and he helps nonprofits figure out where they should go to raise money from individual donors. He really dissects it down by zip codes, so on and so forth. So it's a really valuable resource. Here's a chart. So Marion County, Lake County, that makes sense. And it goes down from there. So you can tell that if you're in St. Joseph County, Indiana, you have a much larger population than a lot of the counties in Indiana. And Indiana has over 84 counties. And each of those, by the way, usually have a community foundation. Some are combined, like 3 counties and 1 community foundation. So go to your government websites, use them. You're paying for it. It's your tax dollars. It's yours. Step 3. The truth is, not all foundations want to fund your great idea. To save time before you write your proposal, it's important to understand this, not because your need isn't important, but perhaps they don't fund proposals with your particular cause or in your geographic area or at the level you're seeking. So first, most foundations only fund within a specific geographic area, usually the one in which they are located. For instance, community foundations usually only fund proposals that affect their local communities. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, but this is probably true 90% of the time. Family foundations usually fund in areas where family members reside, and larger private foundations like Ford Foundation or the Carnegie Foundation often fund nationally and internationally. So selecting where you're going to do your program geographically is important. Second, every foundation has a list of things they fund and don't fund, and those lists are usually on their websites or on databases we'll discuss. This is where your needs statement is important. You need to identify key words from your statement to use in your search terms. In the needs statement, we presented before keywords that might be food banks, food deserts, poverty, etc. This will help you focus in on the funders who fund your stated need. Third, foundations usually only serve certain populations. These could be youth, infants, women, men, minorities, the elderly, war veterans, the underserved, etc. It's important to know specifically what populations you will be serving. Fourth, funders usually have a funding range to let potential grant proposal writers know what they can expect in terms of the level of funding they offer. Some may offer $100,000 to $200,000, $1,000 to $5,000, $200,000 on up. The amount you're asking for should fit within those ranges. And the less you are known by the funder, the less your first grant proposal request should be. This is because you haven't established credibility with the funder yet, and that trust will grow over time, but it's essential. Funders, like banks, like to fund organizations that they know are sincere and solid and can be successful. So, in summary, first, define the geographic area that you will be serving, meaning what city, state, or country you'll be serving. Second, identify key words for your cause to use for your searches. Third, be clear about the populations you will be helping, whether it is the underserved infant, children, men, women, animals, etc. If there is an age range, include that. You can even combine some of these, for instance, women and children in underserved populations. Unless you have established a relationship with the funder, be conservative in the amount of money you ask for. Our super step number 15 in part 3 will help you decide what to ask for. Again, please leave your comments and questions below. Let me know if you want to do a deeper dive into the subject from a future video. Step number 4, identifying potential funders. Once you have established the parameters in step 3, there are a few ways to find potential funders. Some of these tools we have already discussed in the previous steps, but they can also be used in this step. So these include ChatGPT, of course, we've used that, and other AI apps. Google Search is a good one. And finally, my favorite, Foundation Directory Online, which I will demonstrate briefly for you. Now, you can purchase a subscription to this service, but many libraries, especially academic libraries, offer it for free. There are more resources, but these are the ones I have found to be most effective. So let's say that our parameters include the need keywords of food, food security, food insecurity, food banks. Then the populations we want to serve are low income or underrepresented, both adults and children. Our geographic areas will be the St. Joseph County, Indiana area, or we could just use a zip code with a mileage range. And then next we'll set our funding amount that we need for the project. For this exercise, let's use the amount of $10,000. Now you might ask, how do I know how much money is needed for this project? Let's face it, most people dread putting a budget together. So I will be creating a separate video just for you titled the Bubble Budget Brainstorming Bonanza. And if you want to be notified about that one, please subscribe, check notify, and we'll let you know. I guarantee you it's a fun way to put together a budget. Yeah, that's right, a fun way. So let's look at ChatGPT. Again, artificial intelligence can be a useful tool in identifying your potential funders. Simply ask it to search for charitable foundations in your geographic area that fund your cause and the population that you will serve. Here's a sample of a search asking for foundations in St. Joseph County, Indiana. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that they fund programs where you will be operating. So I've already put some search terms in ChatGPT. So we're just going to press this little button over here, and it's going to load all the charitable foundations that serve St. Joseph County, Indiana. And so if you look at this, we got the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County, the Harvey R. and Doris Klakow Foundation, which I was not aware of. So that's a new one for me. Also, the Judd Layton Foundation, I was familiar with that. The Shirley Hines Land Trust, was not familiar with that. And of course, Lilly Endowment is a very large foundation and they fund huge projects. So you're not going to go to a place like Lilly Endowment with, a $5,000 grant. Now, if it was 500,000 or 5 million, yes, I have great knowledge of Lilly since I worked at several Indiana academic institutions. Lilly Endowment will do 20 and $30 million projects, and sometimes they actually go to the nonprofit, which could be a college or university, it could be a community foundation in Indiana, and they'll say, hey, we've got $30 million that we will give you if you can come up with a proposal in 30 days. I mean, what a great position to be in, right? You are not in that position. However, what Lilly does do is they give money to community foundations to use in their communities. They also have these special programs where they will give an organization a certain amount of money and say, here, take this chunk of money and serve this particular kind of area or this particular kind of subject area or need. There's no problem getting hold of Lilly Endowment, but they'll probably refer you to someone else unless they know you, number one, and you're big. And number two, you're asking for a lot of money. So who knows? Maybe down the road you will use them, but for now, I would use them as a reference and certainly contact them. They're very helpful, quite frankly. This is one way to identify foundations that would serve your particular area, but it's only one way. So let's go to the next way. Now let's try Google search. Go to Google search and they will pop up all kinds of things. And as you can see from this, I've already put the search term charitable foundations that serve St. Joseph County, Indiana. And you don't want to put in just foundations, by the way, because there are private operating foundations that do not fund usually outside of themselves. These are research foundations, so on and so forth. But we'll see what this comes up with. And you'll see there's a whole list of foundations here, but some of them will accept grant proposals and some won't. So a community foundation of St. Joseph County certainly would be interested in a proposal from a nonprofit that is serving St. Joe County. And there is the Scholarship Fund of St. Joe County, but that's mostly for schools. United Way of St. Joe County might be interested in funding an organization dealing with food deserts. By the way, I'm going to do a whole separate video on different kinds of foundations, one of them being community foundations. Community foundations have nonprofit endowment funds, which means that people with money have come to them and said, hey, I want to set up a fund to fund the arts, or I want to set up a fund to fund impoverished people in our area. And they can set up a separate fund with their name on it, maybe their family name or some other name. And most community foundations are made up mostly of endowed funds from individuals. Some have what we would call an unrestricted fund, which means the community foundation can use it for anything. Those are pretty rare. But the lion's share are people who have come to them and said, hey, we want to set up a fund, maybe a family fund or, a memorial fund for somebody. Here you got the Wells Fargo Foundation, and they also benefit St. Joseph County. This is the John, Anna, and Martha Jean Fields Foundation. Again, this is a fund set up within Wells Fargo. So you probably have to go through Wells Fargo in their charitable foundation division. And finally, Foundation Directory Online. This is my favorite because it lets you get very specific in your research, and it also tells you what nonprofits the foundation has funded and how much money it has given to each organization. This is usually available for free through your local university library, your local library. Most universities will grant library cards to people who live in their community, so make sure you check that out. Here is an example of an online foundation directory search. This is the professional level of the foundation directory. And again, you can usually access this through any university website if they have this database, or you can try your local library. They may have the Foundation Directory Online database and you can use it for free. Again, you can get a subscription to it, and it's on a sliding scale depending on how many people are going to use it, so on and so forth. But many libraries will have this, and you won't have to pay for it. And you only have to do the search whenever you're looking for funders. So it isn't like you have to have access to it all the time. It's like at the beginning of your proposal, when you're trying to find out where's the money, show me the money. So let's start. I'm going to the advanced search right here because I want some flexibility here. So we're going to go down to subject area. We're going to go to community development, and we're going to go to, I think health is here. Let's see. Yeah, and health. Okay. And then we're going to choose Indiana as one of the places. And then when that drops down, you're going to see some other options. I know that St. Joseph County is in the Indiana 2nd U.S. Congressional District, so we're going to do that. Why would we do that? Because sometimes government funding is for specific areas or it's for congressional districts. So you might want to get federal funding, and that's always a good thing to look for because federal funding is usually pretty big bucks. Now, given where we are now in our country at the making of this in March of 2025, there are a lot of federal grants that have been stopped. They have been canceled. They've been discontinued. So that may not be as reliable a source as it once was. That could change, but at this point, that's where we are. So finding private foundations, private charitable foundations, is a good way to do this. Plus, the stock market's a little down now. So, individual donors may not be interested in giving donations right now. Private foundations, you have to give away 5% of their assets every year to remain a foundation, a nonprofit. So out of this, we're going to then go down to St. Joseph County, Indiana. So we're going to look in all these areas and people who will be affected. So let's do our age groups. So it'd be adults and children, and then ethnic groups. We're going to check all of those. Let's go down to health. Check that. Social economic status. Check that. Okay. So we got enough there. Organization name, we're not going to worry about a specific grant maker or recipient. We don't have to put the location of the grant maker at this point. So let's wait on that to see what we come up with. Someone serving the organization. Let's say you're looking for a contact in a foundation and you think that they may be on the board of directors of a foundation. You might want to put their name in there to see if it pops up because this database also records, for the most part, the boards of directors of these foundations and people who work in the foundations. They have to because that's part of their reporting. So it has additional features here. Let's go in a keyword here. Let's put in food as a keyword. We don't have to put in the rest of this because we're not getting that specific. We want to know what they funded in the last 5 years. What they funded 20 years ago probably has no relevance today. They've probably changed their mission. They've changed what they fund, whatever. So you want to know maybe what they fund in the last 5 years. That's a good way to do it. Grant amount, you can adjust this, especially if your grants are going to be like $10,000 or $20,000, because some of these foundations, like the Lilly Endowment, are so big that they're not going to give out small grants. They give out huge grants. And we're talking like millions and millions of dollars, 35, 40, $50 million grants. They have to give away 5% of their assets, which is around $60 billion right now. At least it was a couple of years ago, $60 billion. So 5% of that is $3 billion. That's how much they have to give away every year to retain their status. So they're not going to nickel and dime stuff. They're going to give big money to community foundations to then give out to their communities. They sometimes form separate nonprofits to do certain things. Like there was a nonprofit that dealt with nothing but nonprofit education for nonprofits. But they're always a good resource to look at because you want to know who they're giving money to. But let's do a search and see what we come up with. Okay. So here you see we've got 267 grant makers out of this. Now, that's a lot of grant makers to consider. Now, these people are all over the map. That doesn't mean that they're not legitimate, but if they're funding from Virginia or DC, it's probably a government grant. Now, if you want to get specific, uncheck this where it says include U.S. funders and just click that off, and that will change it. So let's do another search, and that brings us down to 263. And then we can get even more focused and say we want the location of the grant maker, the foundation, to be in Indiana. Let's see what that says. So that brings us down to 256. Let's say we want to get even more specific. Let's try food banks and see what we come up with. All right, there's 62 grant makers. So that takes it down a little bit. Now, you can see most of these, or at least most of them should be, in Indiana. But sometimes what happens, especially with certain foundations, especially family foundations, is that children who live in different states, if they're part of the family foundation, want money going to their particular location. So that gets it down even further. Let's try food insecurity. All right. So food insecurity, this is interesting. That's probably going to be good. Now, I think it's good that we're using different words here and different search terms because you may have to play around with this. Now you're getting more reasonable. Now you're down to 8 grant makers, and these are the grant makers here. Here's one in Granger, Indiana, which is right in the middle of St. Joseph County. Here's South Bend, Indiana, which is also there. And here's the Central Indiana Community Foundation, United Way. So these are all pretty legitimate. These are all in Indiana. So you can see we had to play around with the search for a while, but it's given us all of this information, which is wonderful. Now, I'm a little surprised that Lilly Endowment didn't show up. And maybe that's because we need to change our searches a little bit, but you can also search for them individually. Now, I've never heard of Schwartz Whitecamp Foundation. They are in Granger, Indiana. So let's go take a look at them. So you click on that, and here's what it shows you. It shows you what is being funded. So here, health is being funded, community and economic development, human services. Most of the money, as you can see, is going to Indiana. Some is going to Florida. And again, this is probably because it's a family foundation. So family members live in different areas or they have business interests there. And how big are the grants? So you can see the biggest area they're giving grants is $10,000 to $25,000 here. So if your grant ask is between 10 and 25,000, they're in St. Joseph County, right next to South Bend and Granger, Indiana. They're a family foundation. They may be a great prospect for this particular thing. Now, here's who they've given money to. The Franciscan Health Foundation, they've given a couple grants there, one for $10,000 and one for $5,000. Let's go to view all and see what they've given. Now, it says that that's all. So they may be new, so we don't really know that much about them. But let's go see. The only grants they've given away in 2022 were $10,000, and it was only to Franciscan Health Foundation. So as a grant proposal writer, the fact is that this probably would not be a good foundation. You wouldn't even want to waste your time trying to get a grant proposal to them, unless things have changed. Now, you could go on their website if they have one. Sometimes these foundations will not have websites. The other thing you can do is you can go to the Form 990, but that's not on here. That's on a different website, and we will look at that in step 5. So I hope that you have gotten something out of this and that you use this. And if you need me to do a deeper dive, I can certainly do that, but just let me know in the comments what you think about this, questions you might have, or if you want me to do another video on it. And finally, step number 5. Once potential funders have been identified, I'll help you discover effective and easy ways to do research on your potential funder or funders. Just because a foundation or other funder states that it funds programs like yours doesn't mean that it's true. You must do further research to make sure so that you don't waste your time writing a proposal that misses the mark. Some of the information you may research could be a few years old or is simply incorrect, or their guidelines have changed in the last year or two. Perhaps their funding priorities have changed. It's absolutely necessary for you to know as much about your potential funder as you possibly can. And trust me, I have made the mistake of taking information for granted, and as a result, wasted a tremendous amount of my time and everybody else's time and effort. Now, we've already covered Foundation Directory Online as a way to find funders, but it's also an excellent way to do research on where a foundation funds, how much they grant, who they give money to, etc. You can also use Google or AI to research your potential funder. And if they have a website, thoroughly read everything on it, including mission, strategic plan, objectives, areas of funding, their grant proposal process, their timelines, their leaders, staff, and board of directors, organizations they have funded, etc. Some funders may not have websites, so you should go and try GuideStar.org. This is a great tool. GuideStar is a gold mine of information on every nonprofit in the United States, and again, can be accessed through a university or local library. The other option is to purchase a subscription, but you should be able to access it for free. The tax returns, the Form 990 of every nonprofit in the country is listed here, and those returns contain valuable information. Again, you don't need it for a long time, just long enough to do the research on the potential funders you've identified. You can look at any information they've shared with GuideStar and look very closely at their annual report, their Form 990 for the past few years. This will tell you who they've given to, for how much, and much, much more. All nonprofits in the country have to do a Form 990, which is then recorded in GuideStar.org. So go to your library, find the GuideStar.org database, and you can see if you can find other funders, because this is another way you can find funders, but this is more useful if you already know the funder and you type in their name. So here you can see I have Community Foundation of St. Joseph County, which I have a pretty good idea would probably fund anything on food insecurity in St. Joseph County. I also know some people there, so that would be helpful. And that's a key thing, and we'll talk about that at the end of this series. So let's do a search. We've done the search, and here we are. Here is the Community Foundation of St. Joseph County. Now you can see it's picked up other community foundations. Next door, we have the Community Foundation of Elkhart County, which might also fund something, but usually they only fund in their immediate local area, at least in their county. There are exceptions to that rule, and I'll talk about that when I do a video on community foundations. But here is what's interesting. Look at the information we've got here. So it has kind of a statement here about what they fund and who they are and all that good stuff. Right here, they have their assets. So that's $278 million, basically. Now, they are not required to give away 5% of their assets, but most community foundations do, or pretty close to it. So looking at their assets, $278 million. Let's round it up to 300 million because it's easier to figure. They usually give away 5% of their assets. So let's say they give away $15 million a year. So you could say, well, $15 million a year, that would be a foundation you might want to go to, because they would have the kind of money we're looking for, right? So then we go here and we click and we can find more information, and it gives you the mission, the principal officer, Rose Meisner. I know Rose, have worked with her before. When they started, 1974. Here's the Form 990 right here. We'll get to that in a minute. And what subject areas they cover. And so human services, community improvement, health, all that would fit within our grant proposal need statement. So it has how do we work? So see population served, it says adults. And then it goes into financials. Now, here's what's interesting about this. It tells you how much they had in total revenue, $21 million. So that meant that probably wealthy people came to them and said, we want to start a fund in your community foundation, and they gave maybe $1 million or $5 million or whatever. Sometimes it's less. And here's their investment. So they made $11,900,000. Program services, $12 million. That's probably what they gave away. And then administration fees. Here is their financial statement, which is always good to look at. Over here, you have the board of directors. Now, this may not be totally up to date. It may be a year older, maybe 2 years, because this information sometimes is 2 years old. But a lot of these people stay on the board. Now, the question is, if you look at these names, do you know any of these people? Keep note of that. Do you know any of these people on the board? And this will come in handy on step 15. The same thing with highest paid employees, the president, so on and so forth. Who do you know? I mean, any names stand out in this foundation. So this is a lot of information on an organization, and you want to absorb all of that you can. Now let's look at the Form 990. So this is the Form 990 as of 2024, which is pretty recent now. So you can open it here. Okay, now we're going to look at the Form 990. There's a lot of data on this tax form, but we're going to look down here, and you're going to be able to see all of the organizations that it has funded in 2024. And this is interesting because it tells you how much they got, and it doesn't really say what it was for. It doesn't have a description of that, but it does have the name and address of the organization. And you can pretty much tell if these are organizations that do some things like you do, like if there's a food bank or there's Real Services, which does Meals on Wheels for elderly people. There's all kinds of information here. And you can say, well, okay, we're asking for, $10,000, and it looks like that's a pretty good range here. They've given anywhere from maybe 5,000. Here you've got one for 13,000, one for 35,000. There's one for 6,000. So if you're asking for 10 or 20,000, this is probably not a bad place to go. And now you know that. So you can say, wow, this is in St. Joe County. They fund health and community development and that kind of good stuff. So this would be a place that we would definitely want to put on our list to put a grant proposal into. I hope this is useful to you. Now, once you've done all of that, then you need to go to their website and really scour that. We're coming to the end of part 1, and the last point I want to make is you want to know everything you possibly can about your funder. After you've done your research, you want to write down all the things you still have questions about. Now, this is very important because this will come in really handy in step number 15. Remember, that's the magic step. If you need more information on this kind of research, just put a message down below. So if you want a printed reference tool for steps 1 through 5, simply use the link below and download it for free. And if you like what you've seen so far and you want to know steps 6 through 10, well, click here or click on the link below for part 2.